All right, guys. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Down in the Valley. My name is Edson Ochoa. I have my co-host, Jacob. How are you doing, Jacob?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing really, really good, thankfully. And we've also got Sean on for a couple of minutes before the Rockets game.
Yeah, at 8 o'clock, I'm out of here, y'all. If you got phone calls and we're still talking at 8 o'clock, I'm literally at 8 o'clock, right at 8. I will cut off and walk myself over to the couch. So finish your takes before 8.
Yes, but, I mean, he deserves to watch that Rockets game. He's been super busy all week.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just say this, Edson. You get home typically, what, 6:30, 7 o'clock every day? I have gotten home every day after you except for today. Mm-hmm. Even yesterday, I got home after you. Today, I got home before you. I finally got to depart at 5 o'clock today from over there, and I am so thankful to have this evening to kind of veg out a little bit. But, yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I know it's going to be a very interesting a topic today that has been lit up throughout the whole morning and throughout the afternoon as well. But before we start on that, I just want to go ahead and tell you all, thank you all for joining, to all those 4 viewers. Be sure to leave a like on the video. We'll get to that, Blues fan. We'll get to that. Be sure to also check out our friends at the Beautiful Game Network. Follow them on Twitter at the BGNFM. Check out their website, bgn.fm. While you're there, check out other USL podcasts like us, including Backchat Show, the Rising as One, and we actually got some new, even Las Vegas. We have a new member for the Las Vegas Lights. It's called the Las Vegas Lights Betting show, or something like that. But they're brand new, so be sure to check them out. Also check out our friends, our Dynamo Theory. Every Wednesday, Carson with his article for the Bull and its Horns. Be sure to check that out as well. And follow him at Carson A. Merck. Follow Dynamo Theory at Dynamo Theory. Be sure to also check out our personal website, www.downintheRGV.com, which is hosted by Embrace Fusion, which is Sean's company. So thank you so much. While you're there, check out our articles. Check out our galleries. We have, our podcast will be posted there once they are posted up on SoundCloud. And you can also, speaking of podcasts, you can also find them on iTunes, Google Play Store, Stitcher. So be sure to subscribe to them and help us out in that regard.
Okay, I'm not hijacking your show, I promise. We didn't get to have Generation Orange yesterday, so I'm going to hijack just this portion of it. So I want to read this tweet from Mark Berman. 4 Santa Fe high school seniors, including Annabelle O'Day, established a charitable organization, Hearts United, to aid those affected by the tragedy. This caught me by surprise. They got a ton of help from Houston Dynamo president Chris Canetti. Their first event is Monday at 3 at the park next to the May Bruce Library in Santa Fe. Kudos, Dynamo. That's pretty awesome.
I think the Dynamo organization has done a good job in this aspect. I mean, both the Dynamo and the Dash actually had shirts during warm-up saying Santa Fe strong. Correct. Or things in that regard. And I believe they have been very, very helpful as well with the students. So I really, really, really am happy that the Dynamo took this step for these kids. So having said that, so let's go ahead and start with today's show. And it's been an interesting week for RGV. So we had 2 games in the span of 1 week. We had on Saturday, RGV played against Swope Park Rangers, and then yesterday RGV played against LA Galaxy 2. But we'll go ahead and start with the Swope Park Rangers game. We all know it ended at 0-0, and it was at this moment where a lot of us are starting to worry about the offensive capability of this team, in regards that it had been for the past 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, RGV had scored 0 goals in favor. Yeah, they've kept a clean sheet during those home games, but they were not doing what they needed to do on the offense. So, what can you tell me about that, Jacob?
I mean, there's really not much to say besides the fact that RGVFC's offense didn't show up that night, but RGVFC's defense, especially their back line, was able to step up. And then, of course, we had that same slow start from RGVFC that we've seen a while from the second half. What do I mean by that is just they decided to come out slow, and Swope Park was able to gain momentum, gain ground, and was able to dominate that portion of the game, kind of. Even though it was still really close, it was interesting. And then we also had that the possession was ridiculous. RGVFC did not have enough possession to really control that game. And I think it was like 50, or not 50, it was like 60 to 30, something like that, in possession. So it wasn't as good as a performance as I would have liked to see from RGVFC.
You mentioned the aspect that RGVFC comes out slow in the second half. In the previous game, against Reno, I thought, okay, maybe Reno modified some pieces, and that's why you saw a blatant difference between first half and second half. But 2-3 games in a row having the same, difference in both halves, it really leads me to believe that it's not what the other team is doing, is what RGVFC is not doing coming into the second half, where they're giving up possession, they're giving up opportunities to the opposition, and when the defense can only do so much in that regards. I mean, the last 3 games, they were clean sheets. Against Swope Park, it was a clean sheet. But it's just, I mean, you see the potential that this team has in the first halves. Now, is it that they get tired in the second half, or do they feel overconfident that they, stop doing what they were doing? I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know as well. It's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to see. That second half, I mean, I know that I'm probably jumping the gun here, but when I watched the LA Galaxy game, right after the match, everyone from the whole, even LA Galaxy 2 side, they just fell on the ground in exhaustion. And so even in that second half of the Swope game, it felt like the same deal. It was just, I think they did get exhausted. I think Jerson has to go back and manage his subs just a bit more and see where RGVFC can maybe save some energy so that they can have a burst in the end, because most likely in that second half, either RGVFC is only going to be up 1 or they're not going to be up at all, and they still need to push for that goal.
Yeah, definitely. So before we continue, just want to let you all know, phone lines are open. So be sure to call us and give us your opinions. 956-622-5977. What do you think this RGVFC needs? What positions are lacking? What do you? And we'll touch upon this later, but we'll go ahead and leave it now. What the topic was that was going through social media throughout the whole day, and that is, do you believe that this relationship between RGVFC and the Houston Dynamo has benefited us, or is it hurting us? So go ahead and give us a call, because your opinion is very, very important. This is your show as well, after all. But going back to the Swope Park Rangers game, it just seems like in the offense, nothing was right in the last touch. I mean, you had many opportunities. You had Aldo Quintanilla going through 3 attackers, going around the goalkeeper, but Pablo Aguilar gets in his way, takes the shot, and it goes wide. It hits the outside of the net. You had another Chuy Enriquez opportunity as well that was, I believe it was blocked by the goalkeeper. let me get his name, by Eric Dick. And then that Todd Warden penalty. We all thought, because we had seen like Todd Warden had taken penalties before and always looked confident, always looked poised, and knew where to hit the ball, for it to go to the back of the net. And this time he uncharacteristically threw it not only through the middle, but at a height that was easy enough for the goalkeeper to get a hand on it and not allow it to go inside of the goal.
Exactly. Now, of course, we could also talk about this. The goalkeeper ended up becoming off of his line right as Todd Wharton took that penalty. But at the same time, you're not going to get that call 9 times out of 10. It's only going to be called rarely in the sport. I've only maybe seen it being called maybe once in my lifetime. I'm probably over-exaggerating, but that's basically how it felt. And a lot of different aspects could have gone. He should have gone wide to maybe the right or left to try and fool the goalkeeper. He did try to fool him in that stutter step, but it didn't really help.
I just feel that the stutter step, if you're not highly talented, like for example Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, or players like that, high caliber players, the stutter step can actually hurt you. Because it comes to a point where you take a lot more time to take the shot, and right in the middle of it, you start doubting where you want to place the ball. And so the shot, it doesn't come out as confident as you probably were thinking of it before you started taking steps towards the spot. So I just felt that could have been the problem with Todd Wharton. I don't know, because Todd Wharton really did not make much of a mention in his, because he got interviewed by Carson for the Bull and Horns, but he really didn't mention what happened, and he was not available for post-game interviews after that game. But, that could have been an opportunity that could have changed the game for the second half, because now Swope Park Rangers would have needed to open up spaces in order to look for the equalizing goal. And yet it just didn't happen. In the second half, like we were talking about, it was the RGV left the foot off the pedal, off the accelerator pedal.
And we've seen that time and time again where RGVFC do that exact same thing. They did it against San Antonio. I honestly feel like they did it against even Fresno too, because they had a chance to beat Fresno. They had all these opportunities, but of course, let's just not talk about, I guess, that far in the past. And then coming up to Swope Park, same deal. You have these opportunities. You don't want to make that last pass to have a chance. And then in the second half, when you take your foot off the gas, you're giving the opposition chance after chance after chance. And when that happens, it's most likely it's going to go through. From a goalkeeper standpoint and from a backline standpoint, you can't do that time and time again. And that's what RGVFC let Swope Park do. And it became a big challenge. And then when you had RGVFC try and take it down, they would almost just miss that extra pass to make things work.
Yeah, it's worrying, because you saw similar things as well, pushing back up to the LA Galaxy 2 game, where you saw many chances where, for example, Chuy Enriquez had an opportunity to pass it to an open man, decides to take the shot. And it's just that decision making, I think, is lacking. I think Chuy Enriquez, yes, for the most part, he's a more daring player who will try to, get past the defenders, try to look for the cross, or try to look for the shot. And it seems like he's the only one out on the wing that was placed, not counting Victor Garza. Now that he's injured, he has yesterday he went into ACL surgery, so he's more than likely going to be out for the rest of the season. But other than that, John Montaño, Zach Wright, who else usually goes in? They aren't really bringing something different in this offense. They're not as daring as Chuy Enriquez, and you notice that, like, even in the LA Galaxy 2 game, the commentators were saying the RGVFC offense is too lopsided to the left. All of the attack goes through Chuy Enriquez. It's maybe they're not as confident as Chuy Enriquez, like these other players, but it's so apparent to the point where with Chuy Enriquez, you get 2 or maybe 3 defenders going up against him to try to stop him, and it's not really taken advantage of.
Exactly. And then I can also add this on. RGVFC has not really been able to take advantage of getting set pieces. Like against LA Galaxy 2, they had LA Galaxy 2 played with fire. They came out just showing a fierce ability, and in the first 5 minutes gets a player booked and gets another player booked as well later in the game. But they had a lot more fouls than RGVFC did. I believe in the first half, RGVFC had 1 foul to 7 fouls from LA Galaxy 2. And it gave RGVFC a chance, especially a lot of times, when they had set piece opportunities to play it inside the box, and it would just get knocked out. And same thing, LA Galaxy were able to concede a lot of corners to RGVFC, and RGVFC was not able to put even one of those away. And it's frustrating when you can't even do that on the other side, let alone given the fact that your defense in the second half is just going to basically give up when you're up 1 goal.
Definitely. So a Blues fan says, why does RGV continue to disappoint me? You're not alone, man. You're not alone. I mean, you can tell by the way we're talking and the way we're expressing ourselves about the team. It's different. Like, it used to, we felt very happy-go-lucky. We were like, oh, okay, really tired. All right, it'll get better. You're seeing some positive things. But now it's come to the point of, like, it's the same thing every week. So Jacob and I were talking about last night on his Instagram, where they're always talking in the post-game interviews. We know what we did wrong. We know this isn't right. We need to get wins. And things like that. And yet the same result keeps on happening. It's already been more than a month, almost 2 months, where we're not including the Orange County game. We're not getting the results, and it's always the same same thing every week. I mean, what's going on? At what time? When is it going to be where it can say, all right, it's been fixed. We're starting to get the results.
You stop watching matches. I'm kidding. I just had to interject. I didn't have anything to add other than that, so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm still here, just in case anybody's wondering.
But I'm getting worried. The fans are getting angry. I'm seeing it on social media where people are already starting to get mad at this team. Where people are already starting to point out
hot takes, bro. Hot takes.
It's starting to point out specific players, and I don't know. Like, for starters, I think we need better wingers. We talked about it yesterday that besides Chuy Enriquez, there's really no other winger that'll make good enough crosses to give our attacker, whether it's Aldo or Guillermo Delgado or Max Dees when he gets brought down, like, clear opportunities on goal. I mean, even Aldo Quintanilla yesterday in the LA Galaxy 2 game, you saw him going out to the wing and create better crosses than Matias Aldivar. There was that opportunity where Aldo Quintanilla crosses the ball towards Max Dees. Yeah, it's a little bit a little bit. It was a little bit behind Mac. He was able to control it. But by the time he wanted to shoot, the defender got to him first and hit the ball away from Mac Steves. But other than that, like the crosses always tend to go towards the defender or to nobody at all. And it's troubling when a team who relies a lot, I should say, on wing play cannot get clear opportunities because they haven't dialed down their crossing yet.
Exactly. Wing plays on offense are key to get done. I think that's why there's been a big problem in set pieces as well. If you can't get those set pieces, then you can't really be a wing team. You have to go into the middle. Yet RGVFC decides, let's play out wide, which is cool. You use up all the space on the pitch. It's nice. But then you're going to get trapped, and you're going to basically have to force it up into the box, and it's most likely going to get knocked away. Is there a chance for an RGVFC player to control it and maybe get inside the box then? Yes, but that's really unlikely considering the fact of who we've played in the past. Not just LA Galaxy, Swope, San Antonio. They love to counter, and when you lose the ball like that, boom, it's a counterattack, and your defense that's basically been pushed up has to go all the way back. And sometimes it's really difficult for that defense to get back, and that's what we saw against LA Galaxy too, and that's why that goal, in a sense, went into the back of the net. Nico Corti, sure, he could have stayed in his box, but at the same time, he wanted to be aggressive, and he almost got there. But the LA Galaxy 2 player was just a bit more skilled and was able to go around.
Yeah, definitely. And the more troubling aspect of this is that LA Galaxy before the goal had tried like around 5 or 4 times the same play, lobbed through balls, early crosses, and almost all of the opportunities landed to the LA Galaxy attacker who went past our defenders with just their speed. We had Alvarez doing it. What was his name? Kerpak, I think, was the LA Galaxy, the striker.
Turpak.
No, it's another guy for LA Galaxy too. No, Chris Turpak is the one that was released by not LA Galaxy, San Antonio. Yeah. But one thing I did want to talk about, kind of since we kind of led already to the LA Galaxy 2 game, and that's because Blues fan really wants to talk about it, and that is that counterattack before the equalizing goal by Los Dos. That counterattack that was all on John Montaño. That was a 3v2 opportunity for the Toros, and John Montaño just ruins it.
Yeah, that 3v2 for the Toros, and it's poor play is really all I have to say on that, because there was no need. And it's just really frustrating to see a team that has a chance to go inside the box, but then just mess everything up.
Yeah, so kind of the way I described it yesterday on the live stream was John Montaño grabs, I believe it was after a corner kick, lands on John Montaño. He starts running. It's a 3v2 opportunity, and he runs straight to the Los Dos defender. And not only that, the fact that him being a bigger guy than the other defender does not know how to use his strength to shield the ball properly, gets taken down really easily and loses the ball. And then a couple of plays later, that's when Los Dos finds the equalizer once again with a long lob through ball, like we just described. But it's to a point, I'm sorry, but it's to a point where I said, and you can ask the guys at the Dynamo Discord chat, I said, we're playing with 10 men. Why? Because John Montaño was subbed in. That's how bad I think John Montaño has played so far. And we have not seen any more of a Team Monday. We have not seen any more, not even of Guillermo Delgado. Zach Wright is given sporadic minutes. And what my question is, what does Gerson Echeverry see in John Montaño? Because it's the same thing we're seeing ever since that San Antonio preseason match. And Sean was there, and he saw him, and he's like, yeah, like he got tired really easily, didn't really know what to do with the ball, and I have not seen it other than that assist that he had at the home opener. That's it. That's all he's done.
Exactly. And I know how much we've talked about Montaño just not playing well, and I guess what Gerson sees in him is before the match, and it's frustrating. I think even Gerson said it in the press conference after the game. He said something like this, that even though we're doing really well in practice, it's the game that matters. And so I think each time he's seen really good things from John Montaño during practice. So that's why he puts him in the lineup. And when John Montaño plays, John Montaño just doesn't know how to play, I guess, in a game scenario in a way. And practice and a game are two different things. I know that it sounds so old because of the Allen Iverson thing, but it is true. They're two different things.
Practice? You talk about practice? Practice?
Yeah, I mean, and it's sad that someone who is supposed to be a pro player, who technically has a little bit more experience in pros than the rest of the guys, doesn't know how to put in what he does in practice in the game. Can't handle maybe his emotions. I don't know. But it's just, like I said, it's almost like playing with one man down. And it sucks to say that, but that's how I see it. We're losing balls really easily. Can't get a decent cross. Sometimes even there was a play, in fact, where he got in the way of, I believe it was Max Steves, if not Jordan Jones, actually, right at the end of the match. Last game against Swope Park Rangers had a good opportunity to score the game-winning goal at the very last minute, and he pretty much shoots it over to, like I said before, to the to the golf course behind HEB Park, because it wasn't even heading towards the goal.
No, it was not heading towards the goal at all. It was heading. It was heading off. Even, I think, Caesar, our cameraman, he even said it was basically heading into, or maybe it was Ray. Either way, they said heading into section 111, basically. That's how bad the shot was.
Yeah, and you just cannot have that. And so it leads me to believe that at least in those, it's almost like those positions, the players that they got were pretty much kind of like, oh, okay, kind of last minute thing, because John Montaño, like I said, all of a sudden, like at that match against San Antonio, that's where we find out, oh, where did he come from? Or like, where did he come from? I didn't even know about it. He wasn't announced. He wasn't anything. In fact, nobody, like, even I tried doing research on him. Nobody could say where. All we know is he's Colombian. We never knew like what team he came from or anything like that. So I do also want to point out, so there were some differences in the lineups between these two games. Against Swope Park Rangers, you had your typical lineup. You know, you had Nico Cordy on the goal, and the defense. You had Kyle Adams, Omar Ontiveros, Connor Donovan, and Manny Padilla. The young draftee. In the midfield, you had, Chuy Enriquez on the left wing, Nicolas Perea, Todd Warden, and Matias Saldivar out on the right wing. And then up in the attack, he had Pablo Aguilar and Aldo Quintanilla. And I just cannot stop saying good things about Aldo Quintanilla. The hustle that he brings to this game, the fact that he dares himself to shoot outside the box like he did against LA Galaxy 2, trying different things, coming down to the midfield to try to help his teammates in building up the attack, making sure that there's no huge space between him and the midfielders. And like I said, that agility that he has, it's a good. He's brought a lot of good things to RGVFC. He just needs more help from the rest of his team. I feel like sometimes he's too isolated.
For sure, way too isolated sometimes. And I mean, even back with Aldo Quintanilla, when you know you're doing something right is when you get called in to get interviewed 2 times in a week. And what do I mean by that is he was interviewed on Saturday for the Swope game, and then he was interviewed after the game Wednesday or last night for the LA Galaxy game. So he's doing something right. He just needs to keep that momentum up. He can only do so much because he's on offense. As long as he keeps on putting away goals or even assisting in goals, just being a playmaker is all he needs to do, and you'll see big things from that guy.
Yeah, definitely. Now, going towards the LA Galaxy 2 game, you had the lineup, the starting 11 was Nico Corti back on goal, Kai Green, Kyle Adams, Robert Castellanos, and Jared Watts in the defense. Nicolas Perea, and then Matias Saldivar and Todd Warden. Aldo Quintanilla, Chuy Enriquez, and Max Steves. Now, what jumped my attention is that big change in the defense where 3 of the 4 defenders that brought you the clean sheets did not return to the lineup. And I understand, like I said yesterday, that Kai Green, maybe he has more of experience, veteranship, leadership, especially when you're going up against a wonder kid like Alvarez, Efrain Alvarez, who what I actually saw out on social media was actually I guess you can say discovered by Eric Cantona when he was like 9 years old. So he is that good, and just the fact that they were able to control him is a good sign that, okay, maybe this defense wasn't playing as bad as I thought originally yesterday after the game. But it just caught my attention that, kind of like they say, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And yet it was moved.
Yeah, it was moved big time. All the
we got a call.
Yeah, that's fine.
Welcome to Down in the Valley. Who am I speaking with?
Edson, how you doing?
Hey,
I'm
what's
listening
up?
to those points you're giving out right now on the defense.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about that point right there. Like, if it's working, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the plan was. I mean, I'm not saying the other players that came in, they're not good players. They're good. But, you had the 4 defenders, and they gave you 3 clean sheets. So what's the reason for changing it out? I mean, it's 75% of your defense. I mean, it's gonna affect the team somehow or somewhere down the line. And I think that was one of the things that happened last night. I mean, that the guys coming down from Houston, I don't know. The way I see it is we're having problems out there. Not getting goals. And, you're going to need somebody or you're going to need some to do on the team that is going to help you out. and I don't know. That's a thing that I'm still thinking about. I mean, I don't know what the Profe Echeverri was thinking about or what he was planning on, but I think that was one of the problems.
So Jacob, you were there in the post game conferences. Did he make a mention about these why he made these changes in the defensive lineup?
I don't necessarily remember that much because of the fact that once again he spoke really softly because he was once again upset, and yeah, it didn't help when he was speaking really softly, and he didn't really mention why he made those changes, but in my opinion, I think it's like what you said a bit because of there was more speed with him, but then it goes back to only changing so much. We thought that was a bad thing at the start, and then finally he left the lineup the way it was. But those small changes are fine. When you basically create a whole new back line, that's a problem. And I think that's what he did. And I don't know exactly why he did it, but it happened.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really say. Well, I mean, they had like, what is it, like 4 day difference, but still, my main concern is, with this defense that is giving you a clean sheet, and then all of a sudden you bring in 3 different guys, one of them being a player coming in from Houston, which I can safely assume did not train with the rest of the team because he was more than likely brought down the day before. That doesn't help at all with the understanding between the chemistry that was developed between these 4 players. And I think in the end, that's what ended up one of the reasons why they scored, or why LA Galaxy 2 played the way they did with those through balls up in the air. And then in the second half, you pretty much waste a substitution to bring in Adam Lundqvist into the game right at the before the second half. That's an unnecessary change right there in the regular sense of looking for some change in the formation, some change in tactic that'll benefit you in trying to get the win. This was more along the lines of the Dynamo coming to Gerson Echeverri, said, okay, we're sending you these players, but you have to put them. You have to make sure that they play a certain amount of minutes, and so that's what I see. Because you can't really explain why Watts was substituted at the half and then brought in for Adam Lundqvist. Number one, Jared Watts, he did not really look that tired, even though he's coming off an injury. And number two, the change wasn't needed there. So you pretty much wasted a substitution that could have been useful in the later stages of the game. Now, number two is last week against Swope Park Rangers, Gerson Echeverri tells us in the press conference, hey, you know what? Something needs to be done. I'm going to need to talk to Houston to see if they can bring down some players. But we were talking about...
The point on that one that you just talked about is Houston, is Dynamo helping out RGV, or RGV is helping out Houston? I mean, what Echeverri said last week was we're going to get some help down here. Okay, but it seems like it's the other way. I mean, if Dynamo is sending out a couple of players down here, is that because those 2 players, they have not played on the Dynamo games, and they need to get some minutes on the field? I mean, is that what it's all about? I mean, it's helping out Dynamo and not the other way. I mean, because if that's the way it's going to be working out. I mean, it's not. It's not helping out any on our side. Well, like it was mentioned on the media during the day that people down here, are getting frustrated. So you get out of the field, you get out of the stadium, and you got anger and frustration and all that because of what you're seeing on the field.
So who do you want from the Dynamo?
Do I? Well, as far as names, I cannot mention no names. I mean, it's just going over and talk about like Echeverry said. I mean, we need some help, or we're gonna have to work it out. Okay, but are we gonna see it from the Toros point of view, or are we gonna see it from the Dynamo point of view? I mean, who's gonna be helping who? That's my point.
Yeah, see, the main problem, and that's what what it's hitting at, is that Jerson Echeverry was looking, okay, we need help in the attacking portion of the game, whether the wingers or whether they attack. But 2 out of the 3 players that were sent down to RGV were defenders. We didn't need
Exactly.
help. We didn't need help with the defensive aspect.
I get that. But stop and think about the question I just asked you. Who from the Dynamo in those positions do you want? I'm waiting. Because the answer is the best players on the Dynamo right now in those positions. I mean, the best players on the Dynamo right now in the starting 11 are in those positions. Not the positions they sent you, but in those positions. They don't have a lot of depth themselves at those positions. Our wing depth, light at the Dynamo. You know this. Our forward depth in the Dynamo, extremely light. You know this. Our attacking midfielder depth in the Dynamo, extremely light. You know this. My point as a Dynamo fan to you is who from the Dynamo in the attacking third do you want? I can understand two names, held up one finger, but two names, and you said them earlier, Mac and Memo.
Names.
But what if they are part of the Dynamo's plan, and the whole reason the Dynamo haven't sent them back down is because they actually plan to sub them on very soon for some other matches?
What about Eric Bird?
That he's not an attacking player per se. He's a center mid who plays center mid, not necessarily attacking third.
But with RGV, he played a center attacking midfield role. Or you can, he was used also as well in the wings.
And who's to say he won't still be sent down? Who's to say he still won't be sent down? You're assuming that this is the end. This is, you know what I'm saying? The only reason I say this is I'm hearing what you're putting out there on the phone. He's saying, which way is it? Is it the Dynamo helping RGV or RGV helping the Dynamo? Well, the answer is it's RGV helping the Dynamo. But on the other end of that stick is what can the Dynamo do to actually help RGV? The answer is, with the way that the Dynamo are constructed right now with their roster the way it is right now, they don't have the depth to bring those players down that you want. We don't have forward depth. If we sent down Mac, we would have nobody left at forward except for Morrow. If Morrow got injured, we'd be effed. If we sent down Memo, we have nobody at attacking mid-depth except for Arturo Alvarez, which, don't get me wrong, he's good attacking mid-depth, but he's really not that fast anymore. He's not the guy lighting that fire when we need it in the final moments of a match. So my point is, that I'm trying to make here, and I hope that RGV fans are listening, and hey, trust me, I feel where you're coming from, is just think about what you're actually asking for. The Dynamo don't have these magic players, magic beans to send down to you that are going to make your team better. They don't. So the reality is they're going to send who they send. Whatever, don't worry about that. How can the Dynamo help you guys sign better players for RGV specifically? That's the question you need to be asking. Not who can they send us, who can they sign for us?
Yeah, but the problem is we're in mid-season, so it's kind of, you can say, too late to say like, oh, who can they sign it specifically for us? Where you mentioned the Dynamo's going to look out for themselves first.
Let me ask you this question: who is doing the scouting for RGV? Because these are issues that should have been confronted before the season. These are not things you knew going into the season, you being the collective RGV, not you, even though I'm like staring a dagger into you right now. But the question is, who does the scouting for RGV? The answer to that is, it is the Dynamo. My problem is, who are you griping at from the Dynamo? Are you griping at Coach Wilmer because he's not sending down the players you really want to have? Or are you griping at the guys that are helping to technically run RGV from a technical standpoint, which is not Wilmer.
So Johnny brings up a good point, and he says we don't want, or at least in his case, we don't want Dynamo players. We want our players to develop without risk of getting taken away.
Okay. That's never going to happen. You and I know this. We've had this conversation before. That's never going to happen. If a player develops, he is always going to be a Dynamo possibility. Always.
Yeah, and then so taken away and not being used, and then we have the problem with Charlie Ward. Which now
You're
he's out.
absolutely, on that note, you are absolutely 100% right. And I did say RGV are helping the Dynamo. However, the issue is not what you're worried about. The issue is that the scouting for RGV is null. Like, there's not any going on. We see some of these players being brought in. They're being brought in by Gerson and his staff. They're not being brought in by the technical help the Dynamo are supposed to be providing, right? So I'm getting to a point here, and this is going to tie into something you and I have like been harping on all season for the Dynamo as well. That structure comes from the top. Those decisions come from the top. Now, they're allowed for Gerson and Wilmer to make those decisions as far as who goes back and forth. But the problem is the Dynamo are not signing players specifically for RGV that are the caliber and quality that you want. And then you okay, so actually I'm going to back this up for a second. So let's say the Dynamo sign a player that you want that's a high caliber player. He's playing good quality soccer. You know he's going to the Dynamo because the Dynamo are always going to look out for the Dynamo first. That's your point, and I get it. But you're also the sister club. You're also the feeder club. You're a farm team. You don't have to like it, and I really wish marketing would be better because that's exactly what you guys are. And it sucks to hear that as a fan, but the reality is it's always going to be that way. Well, it's going to be that way as long as there's a relationship, but you know, neither here nor there.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead,
I think he was just clearing his throat.
Jacob.
Okay, well, yeah, I see exactly that. And I see where you're coming from too as well, Sean, because yeah, I've also noticed that Houston doesn't have a lot of depth and they can't give us exactly what they want because guess what? They also sell it. They also constantly sell the players that RGVFC has had before.
Preach.
And then, you know, they keep them for their self. They keep them basically in hostage. And when it comes to time for Houston to sign a better player, bye. You're gone. You're gone to Jacksonville. You're gone to
San Antonio.
Exactly.
Well, but
San Antonio, right there.
But the thing is
Well,
they're
two of them.
they're not sold to San Antonio. Let's clarify this now. They're not sold to San
Oh,
Antonio.
excuse me. Released and then picked up by San Antonio.
San
so yeah,
Antonio. Let's give San Antonio credit, and you know I know you guys hate to do this, but let's give San Antonio credit. They're smart. All they're doing is they're waiting for the Dynamo's sloppy seconds.
yeah.
I mean, let's be real, Harry. I know you're listening, and yes, that was totally meant for you, man.
Yeah. Like, for example, going back, we were talking about Emilio Garcia. Emilio Garcia was a really good winger for RGV the inaugural season and in 2017. He was one of the littles. Now, he's without a contract.
Yeah.
He was not signed by the Toros.
So they've had what? They've picked up 3 ex-Dynamo players, 4 at this point, maybe more. Here's a question for you, and this is going to tie into something too that I think maybe would be worth you guys discussing RGV wise. I've got 15 minutes, so maybe I'll get a chance to chime in on that too. Here's the question: how many players have left RGV at this point and become good players for their teams? Have left the Dynamo organization as a whole and become good players for their teams?
Sebastian Ibeaga.
I got one. There's more. He's not the only one. Come on now.
That left the whole Dynamo organization.
Yeah. No, they can't just leave RGV and go to the Dynamo. They have to leave RGV and the Dynamo organization.
See, I can't say Ivan Megales because he's struggling with Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Exactly. Adam Moffat is one, but he wasn't an RGV player. It was before RGV was RGV, but it's still the same type of player. So go ahead, Jacob.
Technically also Steinberger, too.
Zach Steinberger.
Yeah, that's another one.
He's been doing really well with his team.
And so the reason I asked that question is it's important to think about because the question then becomes, Is it Dynamo scouting / RGV scouting, bringing in young players to work through the system? Or is it players getting frustrated at the system not working the way they want it to work? Or thirdly, is it a lack of professionalism from those players? And when they go play for a USL-specific club that does not have a feeder team like a San Antonio, they don't have to have that professionalism. They know that's as high as they're going to go, so they go all out. There's a lot of depth in that question. There's a lot of meat, a lot of substance to that question, and there's a reason for that. It's because I'm not surprised he hung up at this point. We've been going on for a while without him. Mm-hmm. My thought, though, the way I'm processing this here, and the reason I bring this up, is I want you guys to think outside the box. What I hear from all these RGV fans, and I'm congregating, or not congregating, I'm grouping them together at this point because it's a lot of the same stuff. We need this player. We need this player. Not specific players, but we need players at these positions, or we need to improve at these positions, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. That's great. You do. You're not wrong at all. You're absolutely 100% on point. But how do you improve those things? It's not just bringing in new players to fill those voids that are better. It's learning how the Dynamo scout that makes a difference. And it's because when they start bringing in players, if they bring in the right players, it's going to improve RGV, which is going to also improve the Dynamo.
But how, when everything is just so secretive about it?
That's a Dynamo organization issue that you and I have talked about repeatedly as well. Transparency is not a Dynamo trait.
No, we know that. It's just
it sucks as a fan. It sucks as a fan. I'm not going to steal your thunder, I promise. But it sucks as a fan. Trust me, we were there. We were going through the same things before RGV. RGV is not a new phenomenon or anything. It's not. Other USL clubs that are tied to MLS teams struggling with a lot of the same issues. It's not just you guys. This system is very specific. We've had 2 years with the Wilmer system in the Dynamo. 1.5 years. Well, yeah, 2 years because he started at the beginning of last year. So 2 years with Wilmer's system in full. RGV's had 1 more year of that, maybe 1.5 years because he came in kind of part way. No, he was 3 total years in the system. Mm-hmm. How about we give the guy like 5 years of his system to see if it actually does anything? Systems don't work overnight. There are very few coaches, even on the international stage, that their system, when they come implements it, and it works in the first year. Very few. Very few. Very, very few. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look at Liga MX. How many coaches come in with a system and a specified style of play, and it takes more than the first year to implement it? Does that get implemented in their U20 teams? The answer is no, it does not. It takes even longer to get it through your system because you're building these players from the ground up. You can bring in players that fit the system, but just because a player fits the system doesn't mean he fits the organization. They're 2 separate entities. That's the problem. When your Dynamo organization, front office, sucks ass, pardon my French, it trickles down. That's why players leave, not because the Dynamo don't want them, because the player wants to leave.
So you think that is the reason why season after season, we never repeat players?
You're not getting 3 years of a player. You're not getting a player in the system long enough to grow with the system. Look at players that have Memo Rodriguez. What's his name that I can't remember? He came from the Dynamo Academy and just went to RGV, and I can't think of his name.
Lucatero?
Yes. No, not Luca. Luca left.
Yeah, okay.
The guy who didn't leave. He's playing with him right now. He came through the academy, just nobody know. Like he was one of those low-key academy players that nobody thought was going to amount to anything, and now he's actually playing decently. But I can't think of who he is. It's been a long week. That's my excuse. But, I mean, again, 3 years. Give me a player in the system for 3 years, and I promise he's going to be a better player. Like, he's going to be significantly improved.
Kai Green.
Kai Green's a good example. He's improved significantly since he started. And, you know, at some point he is going to move up. But if Wilmer doesn't like him, I mean, that's neither here nor there.
Kai Green and Todd Wharton.
Todd Wharton's another good one. But, and technically Bird has been with them 3 years now.
Yes.
And he's reaching that point. He's progressing to the next level. You guys should never have a player more than 3 years in RGV. You shouldn't. It should be a constant cycle of players. It should be. Now, that 3 years is a lot of time for players to gel. The problem is you're never going to have a complete team of starters that gel for the full 3 years. It's going to be a constant shifting and cycle of players. Even the Dynamo go through that. 2/3 of our starting roster has turned over in less than 2 years. Actually, I take that back. All of our Dynamo starting roster has turned over in 2 to 3 years. So if that's happening at the top level, shouldn't you kind of expect that at RGV level too? It's a trickle-down effect. It's going to be that way, I promise. All right, give me one more call. If somebody want to call in, you got 2 minutes. Throw me down under the bus. Bring it.
Come on, Johnny. So,
Oh, yeah, Johnny and I will throw down, and I got no problem with it. Come on, Johnny, bring it.
yeah, so I saw that there was actually like a little.
Oh, nobody likes to hear it. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say about that because it goes counter to what everybody wants to hear, which is, oh, yeah, we're going to fix it. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be great, guys. I promise. It's going to be
We're
awesome.
gonna build a big wall, and it's gonna be the greatest wall ever built.
And we'll get
It'll
them
be-
to pay for it. We'll get
we'll
San
get
Antonio
you
to pay for it.
I just had to do that. Sorry, guys. No, I mean, so
Donald Trump.
so in summary,
That was a lot. Sorry.
So in summary, it's going back to what we always talk about. It's Dynamo organization. It all just
It is.
goes back to the all.
It goes to the tip of the spear, right?
All roads
You got a phone
lead,
call.
All roads lead to
See,
Rome.
look, somebody wants the. It's probably him. Is it Johnny?
Welcome to Down the Valley. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Edson, it's Alex. from
Alex.
The early bird.
Hey, how are you doing, Alex?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no,
I just want to, I just want to talk a little bit about this partnership between the Dynamo and the Toros, and I'm really not for it at all. And I can't see any real benefits from it anymore. I don't know, man. I'm really all out on the whole Dynamo thing, and yeah, I mean, I understand a lot what your partner Sean is saying there, but I disagree. Like, we shouldn't just accept that it's going to be a constant revolving door of players at this team. I really think we need to move away from that. And to be honest with you, I don't even look at I don't even look at the San Antonio FC as our main rival anymore. I really look at the Dynamo as our biggest rival right now, because if you're a Toros fan, I really think you need to be wholeheartedly against this partnership and just fighting tooth and nail to get some more autonomy for the Valley.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually don't disagree with Alex.
Interesting.
And here's why. How much benefit have the Dynamo had by having RGV? Remember, this is a two-way street. We have no starters that have come from RGV.
Could it be because you've taken the players too early? And
Here's my point behind that, though. It's not beneficial either way because it's an organizational issue. It's hemorrhaging and hurting both teams both ways. If the organization at the top was structured and handled better,
like Red Bulls,
like
or-
Red Bulls or LA or Seattle or
Swope.
Portland or Swope or the 80 some odd teams. I mean, Atlanta's team is a good example. Well, Atlanta doesn't have a team anymore. They're different, but actually they do, don't they? It starts this year.
Atlanta
Started this
too.
year.
Atlanta too.
But the thought process point there is, I don't disagree with him because it's not been beneficial to either side. The problem is the Dynamo aren't going anywhere. You can hate it all you want. The Dynamo are not going anywhere anytime soon. The Dynamo see it as beneficial. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. But we as fans, nobody on either side really sees it as all that beneficial. I want you to do this for me for the second hour. I want you to poll on the Dynamo Discord and in YouTube chat. How many fans on either side think this is beneficial? I'd be curious how many Dynamo fans in Dynamo Discord actually find this a beneficial arrangement. I bet you'd be surprised.
I'll post.
But that was a good call out, Alex. Just so you know, I do actually agree with you 100%. It's not been beneficial for RGV. It's not been beneficial for the Dynamo. It's a vicious cycle, and it hurts player development overall. And the biggest problem, it's not the relationship that hurts it. It's the Dynamo organization that hurts it. It's the Dynamo leadership that hurts it. Look at other teams. They have the same types of relationships going on. They have the same types of organizations going on. The difference is the way that they handle things from the top down is totally different.
I mean, just take a look at New York Red Bulls. They use some of their Red Bulls 2 players. Later, man. Thank you, Sean.
I'm going to step away, but Alex, good call, man. Good call.
What I was going to
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, like, for example, Red Bulls, they use some of their Red Bulls 2 players for CONCACAF Champions League. And look at where they got from. So he has a point. Now my question is, because I know there's a lot of people asking for independence from the Dynamo, but does Alonso Cantu, does our ownership have enough capital, have enough funds to not only do maintenance on the stadium, on everything, on HB Park, but to grab their own players, pay them their salaries, pay the coaching staff. Right now
the Dynamo is paying all these players, right?
As far as I know, Sean, do the Dynamo pay the players, or is it RGV? Because I think the financial aspects are with Toros. Dynamo pays them. Okay.
Well, there you go. Well,
Yes.
I understand completely, and what you're bringing up there, it's not like the Valley is a particularly rich place. We don't have an ownership group. We just have one owner, and so if we were to break off with the Dynamo, maybe there would be some sort of step down in quality among the players. But I think in the long run, it's what you need to do is start finding your own players and building the team yourself, because when Sean asked that question to the previous caller, who do you want specifically from the Dynamo? There's no one in specific I want from the Dynamo. I just want to be able to build our own team. And I think in the long run, that's how you're going to put butts in those seats, is just building a team that has a chance of winning. I think right now, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think right now, Bert Garcia, our president, Bert Garcia, the president, because he's not my cup of tea. He's focusing too much on the stadium itself to bring in people. And I think what you really need to do is just build a team that has a chance to win, and that's how you're going to invite people and attract people to going to see the club.
I'm glad you bring that up, Alex, because Ray was at the press conference for the America versus Pachuca game, and Ray asked him directly, okay, what is RGVFC going to do to get these fans that come to see America, that come to see Pachuca? How are you going to entice them to come and see RGV and support RGVFC week in and week out? I want you to take a wild guess at what his answer was.
We don't worry about that. That'll come in due time. Taps Ray on the head.
Exactly. He pretty much said, well, that's what these games are for. So that people can come and see the stadium and see the facilities that we have, and they'll come to us. No.
Right.
Even I was listening to that video that he sent me, and I was so extremely disappointed. It was like, no, this is not a build it and they will come thing. You're seeing it.
Right.
There was an article on the Monitor that said that the average so far attendance last year was around the 7,000s. Right now, at this point, we're at the 4,000s. What does that mean? You've brought in Tigres, you've brought in Rayados, you've brought in Santos, you've brought in Chivas, and that is not helping bring attendance to the Toros.
Oh yeah, not to mention they've also brought in the CONCACAF Champions League, and we
Exactly.
saw that crowd, and we saw those free friendlies for RGVFC to play. And maybe just a $5 pay-in fee to watch RGVFC play an MLS team named Houston Dynamo. There, it was still really empty. So with those types of things, once you come over here with the average being 4,000, you've lost fans from somehow doing that. And of course, you're not getting, because it's already maybe 3 years and this team hasn't really been progressing, and then it's just losing fans. It's not going to work. Bert Garcia needs to go back to the drawing board and figure this thing out. If it means more advertising constantly, do it, because leading up to things like that, leading up to the RGVFC Toros games, there's not advertising until maybe a day before.
And most of the advertising is done through social media. Very few is done on actual television. And if anything, it's only done through Telemundo. It seems like they have some sort of specific partnership with Telemundo, because that's the channel that goes and for the most part covers the games. That's the channel that goes and sometimes goes to the post conference interviews. I mean, there's so many things wrong, and it almost seems like Bert Garcia is oblivious, and that is why I want to have him on the show to further explain why he's doing things the way he does, and to get you guys, you as the fans, an opportunity to go to have him face to face, figuratively, and ask him and tell him those concerns that we as fans have, how the way this team is being run. Because before, usually it was just interviews through Greg Luca, through Facebook Live, but very few of the questions that were put on by the fans were actually answered. So I feel like this time, this is more a direct approach for the fans, for him to fully understand, unfiltered, what these fans feel about their team. Because obviously we all love this team, which is why we're getting mad at the way things are run. So Johnny says they really need a football-specific management team, or Cantu needs to go back to the drawing board and get better management.
I would support that. And, I'm going to call the front office out right now. You send your supporter liaison to the Stampede supporters meetings. Why don't you just send your president? I mean, you're already sending somebody who doesn't listen to us and doesn't really do anything except tell us what to do. Just send your very best if you're already doing so, and let us actually have a dialogue with someone who matters, which is Bert.
Now,
we have never. I'm sorry. The Stampede has the only time the Stampede has met with Bert was at a tailgate before a game, and it was unprofessional and very casual. And I really think you need to listen.
Jacob, go ahead and go first.
The point of being a Valley fan, well, it's obviously having pride in your team no matter what the circumstances are. I think you need to support them no matter what. And then, of course, yes, it's so frustrating with the way that it's being run, but I also want to take into consideration, look at how the RGV Vipers were run. I'm talking about in 09, 10, they were horrendous. They didn't have a chance at a championship all the way until maybe 10 and 11, and that team had been around since like 06, 07, 08, and that's my point, since the beginning. And stretched it along, we're looking at, 2011, they win the championship in the D-League, and 2012, I believe. So their success grew out of the blue, or not out of the blue, but just out of a long period of time. Like Sean said, this team should grow as long as the point being that we don't just have that struggle.
My question is, if I recall correctly, the Vipers were originally owned by the Cavaliers.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't doubt you, Edson. I have no idea.
If I recall correctly, I don't think that the Vipers were originally the part of the Houston Rockets organization. I think the Houston Rockets may have bought them. I will have to verify, but I'm sure if I recall correctly, I could swear that it was originally a Cavaliers thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you bring that up?
The reason is, and it goes back. Say again.
3 to 5 years before it was the Rockets.
Yeah. Okay. So Sean says it was 3 to 5 years of ownership by the Cavaliers before they got sold to the Rockets. What I'm trying to get at is Sean talked about organizations, being a huge factor in this, how the Dynamo is pretty much a crap show for the most part, the way they're being run. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the Rockets have done an exceptional job for their first team. Just look where they're at right now. They've been consistently building, and I think that has been seen, to a point where even because RGV Vipers were run correctly, so now you start seeing players like Capella and other ex Vipers players doing good, not only in the Rockets, but if they're sold to another NBA team. But it's the way the organization runs this, and I think that's the key that's been the key difference with the Vipers doing so horrible in the first couple of years, and now doing really good, being competitive under the Rockets ownership. So it all boils down to how the organization is running this. And so I think I get Sean's point in saying we need to direct our attention, our anger, towards the actual front office rather than the way, like, for example, like asking for players. It's a broader aspect of it, and I wish it was as simple as going up to Bert Garcia and telling what we feel, because I just feel that they're kind of turning a blind eye to our needs or wants.
Well, I think it also boils. I mean, you also have to look at the fact that the D League is across the board. Every team in the league is an affiliate of an NBA team, and that's not the case in the USL. The USL has more and more every year. There's more and more independent clubs who are the first team, who are signing players to play in the USL specifically. And I think, if you look at last year, I think it was 7 out of 8 teams in the Western Conference that made the playoffs were independent. And I think that's going to be the growing trend. And I mean, as we move forward, I think we really need to go independent. But moving on, if you were to meet with Bert Garcia, what would be some of the questions you would ask him?
I think my main question is, why is marketing not extensive for this team? Why is it solely focused on social media?
Right.
That's
Right.
one. And then number two, is it
Go ahead.
Is it budget constraint that is causing this? I think that would kind of be the complementary question to it.
Okay.
And number two would be, how much pull does the RGVFC organization actually have to influence how the Dynamo chooses their players? And why is it that if it's not much, why?
Right. Well, I think it's pretty clear that if Wilmer wants to have a player in the lineup, he's going to show up in the Toros lineup. Last year, there was a defenseman for the Dynamo from Spain, Agus. I don't know his last name.
Agus or Raul Rodriguez.
Agus. This guy, he's on his way out of the club at Houston, but he shows up somehow in the starting lineup for the Toros, because I can only explain that as the Dynamo coaching staff said, well, we're going to see just one more game if he's got anything in him. And so he shows up in the starting lineup. Never mind that he's never played with us. He shows up. And so that's just proof positive that the Dynamo are pulling the strings, even who starts for the Toros.
And it comes to no surprise, and that's what. And I just figured the way Coach Echeverri kind of talked about the way things were going to be, we felt that okay, maybe this season, RGV is going to have a little bit more leniency into how the Toros are going to be lined up, but it appears that that's not the case. I mean, like I said, yesterday you had 2 defensive players brought in that we didn't need, and they had to play each their 45 minutes. As well, the last time against Reno, you had Eric Bird come in the night before, Tuesday night, to play Wednesday morning at 10 in the morning against Reno 1868 and be put in the starting lineup. How can you expect this team to play well or adapt to the players who are brought down from the Dynamo with no time to get a better understanding of each other?
Yeah, if you look at our first season, we didn't have an amazing. Let me rephrase that. If you look at our first season, the reason we had the success we did, the reason we finished second in the conference, is because those players had chemistry. They were playing with each other, practicing with each other on a daily basis, and they were gelling, and that's why they were able to overachieve. You know, I hate to be cheesy, but if you look at Leicester City, when they won the Premier League, those players had they were so comfortable playing with each other that they just knew when to cross the ball. They know when it was the right time to pass, and they were gelling, and that's why they were able to overachieve. And we're never going to have that degree of chemistry with the Toros when there's so much meddling with the roster. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Which brings up to the point also that I also wanted to bring up, which is Open Cup. I mean, in this year, for this next game with the Dynamo against NTX Rayados, RGV plays on the 4th of June against Real Monarchs away. The game against NTX Rayados is between the 5th and the 6th of June. What does this mean? Are we going to have to play with the second stringers against Real Monarchs when we know we need points in order to try and make a playoff push, because we've let go so many points at home? But we're going to have to send some of our starters to the Dynamo because the Dynamo does not want to use their own second stringers, or they want to fulfill the second stringers because they don't want to use their first stringers against, I guess you can say, a scrub team, a 4th division team. So we get pretty much, and this is interesting, and I brought it up as well. Que chingones. O sea, they don't let the Dynamo or they don't let the Toros participate in Open Cup, but yet in the early rounds of Open Cup, it's pretty much RGVFC with a Dynamo shirt playing, and who gets all the credit? The Houston Dynamo.
Right.
I mean, you got all these RGVFC players, and they're playing for fans that, for the most part, don't even care who they are. You know, it would be interesting. Okay, all right. So, we'll send RGV players for the Dynamo, but the Dynamo's going to be playing their Open Cup matches at HEB Park, but they're not.
Right. And as far as getting to know these players, you said the Dynamo fans, and I don't blame them, don't really care about these players. They're not in front of them every day. But if you're in the RGV front office, we get to know these players. We remember Charlie Ward. We remember Jose Memo Rodriguez. We are fans of these guys, and it hurts us when they're being pulled away from us. I don't hate being associated with the Dynamo. But if they're gonna loan us players, loan them to us for like the whole season, at least.
Yeah, or minimum actually plan out your season, your roster for 2 complete teams rather than because it's at this point where they stretch themselves so far that the roster isn't filled neither for the Dynamo nor for the Toros. So both rosters are pretty stretched thin. Why? Because it wasn't planned correctly. You see,
Right.
with the Dynamo, it's only Mauro Manotas and Max Steves in the striker position. Who else besides Andrew Wenger? Okay, Andrew Wenger is now playing as a right back because of the AJ De La Garza injury. You also have Juan David Cabezas injured. You have Darwin Saren injured. You have so many injuries right now. Dylan Remick is out of concussion protocol. Not only that, you got Kevin Garcia injured. Jared Watts injured. Who else? George Malky injured. So what does that mean? That they really did not plan out a good, really in-depth roster for the Dynamo. And because they didn't do that, what makes, like you said, what makes you think that they're going to do the same? They're going to put in the same attention or better attention to their farm team.
Well, I think that last phrase you used sums it up for me. Look, if you're listening to this podcast and you're a Toros fan, don't settle for farm team, okay? We don't need that, and we definitely don't need the official RGVFC Twitter going out there and saying, congratulations to our parent club for the 3 points tonight in MLS. We don't need that. If you're listening to this and you're a Toros fan, I urge you, just be more opinionated and ask more of your club, because we're in the USL, we've got a stadium, and we've got a population big enough to do more than just be a farm team. And just ask more for yourself, guys. If you're a fan of this team, just I get it. I want to see this team win the USL Cup. I want to see this team beat an MLS team in the Open Cup. I want the same things you guys do. Just don't be afraid to ask for it. Don't be afraid to be independent. So I'm going to leave you with that, Edson. And I also just want to say, felicidades on this great channel that you have down in the Valley. I'm so proud of you and the great job that you do. And I'm going to give a shout out to Ray Silva. I've met Ray, and I agree with him on a lot of things, and he does some great work as well. Cesar Cortez and Jacob Young, you guys are really great, and I'm just really proud of you guys for all the work you do. So just keep it up, and never doubt yourself, because people are listening.
Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate your words, and thank you so much for calling and giving us your opinion, man. Really appreciate it, and hope to see you at a game, or at least continue communications through social media, man.
Yep.
All
Thanks
right,
a
man.
lot,
All right.
Alex.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening. So, Cesar says hi to Alex. So, Alex, if you're still listening, Cesar says hi. So, want to go back to some of the comments that were brought up. Second string players and the FC Brownsville Coyotes. So, Johnny mentioned, well, any chance of getting out of that partnership? Apparently not. We have another call, so let's see who it is. Welcome to Down in the Valley. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Edson, me, Cesar.
Hey, how you doing, Cesar?
Doing good. I'm at the friendly Coyotes and RGV.
Excellent. So, how's it looking so far?
So far, so good. The Coyotes, for this being their first inaugural season, they're showing a lot of promise right now. We've already had one goal in the 10th minute by number 7, Juan Ibarra.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, before the half ended, they're playing 35-minute half.
Okay.
We had Toros Guillermo Delgado in the
Spaniard.
31st minute with a goal inside the box.
So, the lineup, I can assume it's second tiers. For RGVFC.
Yeah, looking at my notes here, we have some familiar faces like Manny Padilla, Pablo Aguilar, Ontiveros, and Jorginho James.
Okay.
We have some new ones like David Cabrera, Zach Jackson, Sheldon Sullivan, Guillermo Delgado, another one, Bryce
Marion.
Marisson, I believe his
Marion.
name. Connor Donovan's another returning one. I don't think Corti is in starting this match.
I would assume it would be Matt Sanchez.
Actually, I believe it is. I don't know. I wasn't able to get the lineup on that.
Yeah, so interesting lineup, seeing David Cabrera, seeing Jorginho James, and that's another question I have. What's up with what aspect of Jorginho James does not fill Coach Echeverry's eye? What is it about Jorginho James? He's an experienced player. He's a strong player. He can shoot outside the box. We've seen him many times.
Right.
What aspect of it makes Gerson Echeverry not put him at all? I mean, I'm not saying that Todd Warden or Nicolas Perea are doing a bad job, but I could easily would prefer to have Jorginho instead of Matias Aldivar or Montaño. You can try to, you can try to have some variation where you can actually have Jorginho, in the lineup. But I mean, it's like they say, we're not out there and during practices. We don't see what Gerson Echeverry sees. It's just something that really catches everybody's eye. Why Jorginho isn't playing, and it's not just one person. It's not just me saying it. I've heard comments from Jacob, if I'm not mistaken, asking that as well. My dad has asked that as well. So, how are you doing, Leo Salinas? Welcome to the broadcast. So, other than that, so what have you seen so far from the Toros this game?
So far, I've seen a lot of gaps that the Coyotes have been able to penetrate. They've had so many opportunities to take shots on goal. They've had at least three shots on goal. Toros, on the other hand, have had 5, but only one has found the back of the net.
Which really is worrisome. So you're saying that you got Bryce Marion and Sheldon Sullivan. I'm assuming they're playing as wingers, and the fact that really has been one on target. I'd have to see exactly what's going on. So hold on, I think it's Ray Silva calling. Hopefully we'll be able to have him out at the same time. Hey Ray, how are you doing? Cesar, are you still there?
Hey. Yes, good evening, folks. How are you guys?
Cesar, are you still there?
Yes.
No, Cesar, because he was on right now. Hold on. Cesar. Hold on.
We may have lost him, folks.
Cesar, if you're still watching, can you go ahead and call my personal phone number? I'll post it on the chat, and that way I have it ready so I can have 2 phone numbers at the same time. So go ahead, I'll put it in the chat, my phone number. That way we can have both you and Ray on at the same time. So Ray, how's it going, man?
It's going great.
What are your thoughts so far on this debate that we've had so far?
Look, this is okay. Just refresh my mind. I lost the last 5 minutes of it, and I kind of forget who had that final say on it. Just kind of recap the last 5 minutes of it, please.
Okay, so basically, it was more along the lines that the Toros need to form some sort of independence with their scouting, with their roster, and not having to rely too much on the Houston Dynamo, because as an organization, Dynamo have not done things correctly roster-wise, not even for their own club.
Well, it's got to be equal blame in my opinion. It's got to go both ways.
Cesar, you there? All
Toro's got
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
right, excellent. Continue, Ray.
Toros have to do a little bit. Have to take a little bit of the freedom to get some of these players, whether they're from the college level or whatever other level that they may have played at. You know, even if it's within the USL. Like for example, they had Murphy as a good opportunity to come back as a free agent to them, like independently from the Dynamo, like assign him to a free agent contract. Let him
That
walk
yellow
out
card
that
was
way.
for Jorginho?
Jorginho with a yellow. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
in the 5th minute of the second.
Excellent. So, Ray, I think, and that goes to what Sean had also mentioned, with the fact that maybe the fact that we're not seeing players return to the RGVFC Toros, because maybe they're tired of, or they don't like how this organization is being run, and that's why they don't want to renew with RGVFC.
Yeah, there may be something to that as well too. I mean, you take a look at it. You have 3 coaches in 3 seasons. That's not being steady or consistent with a foundation there. That's just something to look at within itself. And then you follow it up with the way it's run. I mean, maybe we're not privy to all these things as outsiders. Not defending them, but, you know, I'm just trying to put everything into a balance. Now, everything that we've seen in the last 2 seasons, it's been like, oh boy, what is this going to lead up to, you know? And right now we're to the point where maybe if we were independent, maybe if we were not independent, who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's just something that I would like to personally see out in the future.
Yeah, and I think not only you, but a lot of fans are asking for that. But like
Hell yes.
But like I also told Alex about it, because he mentioned it as well. Who, by the way, sends you greetings, Ray. So, but what I had told him was, okay, we need an independence movement. RGVAC becomes an independent. Does Alonso Cantu have enough capital to now not only have to deal with stadium maintenance and everything, but also player wages, player signings, purchasing power for it? Does Alonso Cantu not only maybe not have the capital, and maybe he does, but is he willing to spend all that money by himself for this?
Well, you bring that up yourself, okay? Maybe not at the Division 2 level, but maybe at the Division 3, where the cost could be significantly cut down. I mean, there's like a massive cost difference between the D3 and the D2 team. I could actually see that type of team with that type of stadium working out in the Division 3 level. Or maybe you might not need as much capital and whatnot to be successful and to be at an operating style.
So you mentioned to me during the day, because you brought up FC Frisco and how they're planning to open up a D3 team for themselves. Do you see, and Harry asked me this as well, do we see the Dynamo?
A, the financial capital. And then B, the organization itself.
Yeah. Where do you see the more logical aspect, the way things have been run? What, if you could make a prediction, do you see them moving RGV to the USL D3?
I actually see them keeping them. If the Dynamo want to go through D3, I say they give the Toros the independence. Now, that being said, should that happen, I actually see them moving down to D3 if the Toros become fully independent. Should the Dynamo don't want to continue this hybrid relationship. That's just me. I can see the Toros jumping independently, moving down to D3, and perhaps at some point, hopefully that they can find like another investor where they can move back up to Division 2.
So I leave this question up to the guys who are listening to us right now via YouTube, and to those who will be listening this in the podcasted version. Do you prefer to RGVFC to remain a Division 2 team, but continuing with this hybrid partnership with the Dynamo, or would you sacrifice being that the RGVFC become a D3 team, but fully autonomous, fully independent from the Houston Dynamo? I leave that question up not only to you guys here that are watching this live stream, but I will also put it in on Twitter as a poll. I would like to see what you all think about in this aspect. So really good question that you brought up, Ray. Another question I wanted to bring up, because you brought it up in the Down in the Valley chat, and that is, you mentioned that there was an article, or somebody mentioned there was an article in regards to attendance that was brought up by the Monitor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what do you think? And I want to couple it with the interview that Bert Garcia had with you when they announced the America Pachuca game, because I think it goes hand in hand. Because he mentioned that they're not really going to do anything special to get the fans that go to these Liga MX games to come continuously and support the Toros, because they see it as a build and they will come thing. But yet you see these average attendances, and you see like, hey, you know what, this isn't working, and yet they still are oblivious to that fact.
Well, here's the thing. One thing that I noticed during last night's game was that the total should have jumped on this sooner than what they did last night. They had an announcement on the video board. If you buy like a 6-pack, they were going to throw in the tickets for the America game. They're going to throw in the tickets for the America game if you bought the 6-pack. Now, the 6-packs range anywhere from $147 to $250 for premium seating. Now, my thing is, okay, fine, but why couldn't they do this sooner, you know? Tickets, individual game day tickets are going to go on sale on Monday, Memorial Day.
Yes.
So with that in mind, shouldn't they have done something to promote that a little bit more? Now, with regards to the question that I asked Bert, maybe I should have rephrased that. You know, I mean, what are you going to do in order to trade in the cream and yellow, the cream and blue, for some orange and black? What are you going to do to trade in the navy blue and white for the orange and black? What are you going to do to trade in the Vegas gold yellow and the royal blue for some white and royal blue of the Toros? What are you going to do in order to attract more jersey sales, more fans, more everything? That's the way I should have asked that question. Not the response of, if we build it, they will come. We know they're going to come because they're big names. But you're trying to build a nice fan base where maybe you might want to bring a sponsor from Mexico City or Monterrey, Mexico, every 15 days to come and enjoy a nice quality Division II soccer team. Just because the fact that we aren't MLS or Division One sanctioned doesn't make us any lesser than the teams that you bring.
Hmm.
Of course, yes, you're going to get whitewashed by those teams, but still, no excuse.
Yeah, definitely. I just think that the way Bert Garcia is running this, it's almost and Jacob, you mentioned it. It was either you or that said that it's almost like the actual team, the actual Toros, are second tier to the stadium. So it's stadium needs first, and then the Toros. When it should be the other way around. The focus should be on the team, and then the stadium is just, for example, like it complements the team.
Yeah, it really does just complement the team. It's just weird, and of course, RGVFC's going into this whole thing of building a team down here. Everyone's super excited, and then you build this beautiful stadium that takes longer than expected. First off, so it looks like you have a good fan base in the practice fields. Then you turn to this stadium for the second tier, may I remind you, for the USL, and it's almost completely empty, basically. Regular, attendance for that first year in the new stadium was obviously 7,000 when we talked about it, dropping to 4,000 here. And then, but you have these players that get, pulled out constantly, and it doesn't help with the attendance and the way that the marketing is.
Mm-hmm.
And then it builds into this frustration of now you're going to move them down to tier 3 or you could move them down to tier 3 when they have a beautiful stadium, and it's confusing, it's tough, and every single time that we're going to talk about this, we're going to get more and more frustrated. Change needs to be done.
Unfortunately, we don't have many casual soccer fans down here. Unfortunately, the organization needs to continue building on trying to get more casual fans and more diehard fans other than us that produce the show. It's one of those things where you kind of, you're going to lose your casual fan, and unfortunately, it's showing in the attendance numbers, where we've fallen all the way down to 12 or 15 with just over 4,000 fans. And now you're going to risk losing even half or even more of those 4,000 fans to a lower tier. That's a little bit scary and worrisome.
Yeah, and that is why I wanted to post that question, because I wanted to see, okay, so it's kind of one of those things where be careful what you wish for, because it may come true. Where, okay, so everybody wants independence, all right, fine. And then Dynamo says, okay, fine, have your independence, but you're going to be moving down to D3. If it's hard enough to convince people to go watch the Toros, because the first question that they ask is, well, where do they play? Or what division do they play? Oh, well, they play in the second division. I'm not going. It's hard enough to go for an MLS team, which is first division, to get fans. And you see it right now with the Dynamo. It will be extremely even more difficult for us to say, oh, well, D3. Division 3. People want to support the best of the best.
Now, the most ideal thing for it to happen would be if the USL breaks off from the MLS. That would be the most ideal point. because back then USL had first division, second division, and now you can put into play like, okay, we can separate those teams that are fully established with full independent stadium from those that have to use like a separate stadium to play, like at a baseball field or at a place that doesn't even meet the U.S. Soccer Federation sanctioning.
Yeah, definitely. Cesar, you there?
Hey, calling in to report some goal news from Coyotes and RGVFC. In the 14th minute, we have Zach Wright for a goal for the total. Oh, my bad. Jack.
Okay, and who scored? And you said that FC Brownsville also scored?
No, this is a goal for the total.
Okay, so it's 2-1 in favor of the Toros.
2-1. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So Cesar, we've heard the thoughts from Ray. You all have obviously heard mine and Jacob's thoughts for the most part. What are your thoughts on this? Why is Instagram giving me all these notifications? Get out of here. What are your thoughts on this discussion, Cesar?
Honestly, I have to wholeheartedly agree about the team being second tier to the whole stadium itself. It honestly felt like another Dodge Arena or Port Ogden Arena, to host more events rather than actually what it was meant for, which was the team itself.
Yes.
The attendance numbers for any other events have been higher. And it's honestly really embarrassing for the Toros themselves as a club to be outshined by other events like Nitro Circus concerts that have been coming to the Valley.
Definitely, but it almost seems like the organization is shooting themselves in the foot because it almost seems like self-sabotage because of the fact they focus so much more on every other event than with the Toros, than making sure that people come and watch the Toros.
Right, and they are shooting themselves. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, kind of. Because you got this amazing stadium, but yet a team that doesn't seem to be able to don't flat out win.
Mm-hmm.
And that all, again, maybe it does all tie back to us being an affiliate for Houston. Maybe it does tie into them taking our players. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the lack of consistency has really shown at this team. But like we mentioned before, you can't really expect perfection out of it for the second tier team when they can't even get perfection on their first team. So we're kind of screwed. And just like I said on Tuesday with the Dash, it's time that the Houston organization takes a huge and hard look, a long and hard look at themselves, at how they're being run, and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we are not ready to carry this responsibility of not only having your USL team, but you also have Brazos Valley Cavalry and you also have the Dash. And for the most part, Dash and RGV have not, and not even the Dynamo themselves, like I said, are being run correctly. So do they have to go back to basics? Will that be the best thing for them? I don't know. Only they can come up with that decision.
Though I think it can be run even further than that. Now that you think about it, going further from that, the Houston organization hasn't been run correctly, but I bet you, in some way, shape, or form, they're taking a look at the United States Soccer Association and how that is run. And we see how that has been run, and we've seen what has happened for this 2018 World Cup as the USA misses it. So they probably, in a sense, took a look at that and said, that is a good idea. Let's implement that. But guess what? that messed them up, and it's put Houston in a predicament where they don't have enough depth. They can't give RGVFC players, but RGVFC sometimes can give them players and then be out of depth with their own eyes. We're going to see this happen to the Brazos Valley
Cavalry.
Cavalry in about a year or two, where they're going to have a fantastic first season, but it's going to go downhill from there. I bet you it will.
Yeah, and I think that definitely what's going to come. So, Cesar, in what minute are they at right now?
I believe, well, the clock's been a little bit wonky. Now it's actually counting backwards.
Seems legit. All right.
I believe this is like the 25th minute.
All right, so we got 10 minutes to go in the second half for this game. So hopefully, Gerson Echeverry takes a good hard look at this team and prepare ourselves for this Open Cup match with the Houston Dynamo. See what players will be probably grabbed from the Toros and brought over here to Houston for this game against NTX Rayados. So
speaking of which,
yeah.
Do y'all guys have any questions for Profe?
Ray?
Hello.
Do you have any questions right now for Coach Echeverry after this game? I think my question would be, because of the fact that we're probably going to be losing some players for Open Cup match, do you see this second string team or this team that played against the Coyotes as a viable option to continue in USL play in the duration that the Dynamo is in the Open Cup? I think that would be my question.
So,
Yeah, and I think
let me see if I can word this right. So, like losing players for the Open Cup. What do you see? Taking the game that you've just seen right now, do you think any of these will be? All right, word it again so that I know how to ask him.
Do you, from these players that played today against the Coyotes, do you see these players being able to substitute any potential players that will be called by the Dynamo for Open Cup matches to not affect greatly our performance in the USL play?
Okay.
Jacob, you got
Any
yours?
other questions?
Yeah, my question would be, who was really able to stick out? Who would you be willing to put back into the? Well, I take that back. Oh, that was a bad question, but it would be. So yeah, basically, who caught your eye, and who would be worth putting in as even a super sub throughout? Well, who would be?
Did any of
Who
these
would
players
you
fill your
super
eye?
sub? Yeah, for Real Monarchs.
Yeah,
Or
that's,
even a starter, maybe.
I mean, we know for sure that, like, for example, the players like Manny Padilla, that is obviously not going to be a problem. The problem would be like if we lose Aldo Quintanilla, if we, who's going to go up and replace them?
Oh,
Have they done?
sorry to cut y'all off. Toros have a penalty within the 30th minute.
Okay, let us know. Let us know who, if they make it. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, guys, because we're about 5 minutes from 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And that's because I didn't have the
I was
long.
going to say nice. If you're in New Zealand time, 9 a.m. sounds good.
Oh crap! I'm late for work. But yeah, so
Jesus Christ, I got to get up in 2 hours.
right. So yeah, so it was an interesting.
FarmersOnly.com, ding ding.
Down in the Valley, brought to you by FarmersOnly.com.
Go for Toros!
Who scored it?
I'm trying to look right now. They're wearing their practice jersey, so I can't.
Oh, well, that doesn't help.
Yeah. Really tiny numbers I'm working with here.
Yeah. Okay. So just let us know on Twitter. Put on
All I know
Twitter.
is that the score's 3-0.
3-0 or 3-1.
3-1, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 3-1. So we can go ahead and say and safely assume that the RGB Toros have defeated the FC Bronzo Coyotes. Al menos que no pase una tragedia.
It was a really slow start, but they managed to.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
negativo Willy González.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
negativo Willy González.
viene el centro, viene el remate, gol. Pasó la tragedia, señores y señores. But yeah, so un mexicano. So I really want to take the time because we're 4 minutes away. I really want to take the time to thank every one of y'all who stayed and watched this whole show. Thank everybody who participated with their calls, with their opinions. I want to thank you, you guys, Jacob, Ray, Cesar, for keeping us up to date. With information, with your thoughts on this discussion. I want to thank Sean for jumping up and being
Greg
devil's
Luca
advocate.
who followed up with some numbers on the attendance. Greg Luca on the monitor, who has already told me that he wants to participate someday soon.
Yeah. Just get if you can get in contact with him and kind of get settled on a date where he wants to come on the show, he's more than welcome.
I'll line him up.
All right, man. Yeah, just let me know. So, you guys have any last words before we sign off for the day?
Nope. I'm good.
Nope.
All right.
I just basically say this. And real quick, even with the LA Galaxy 2 game that we had here, I was really impressed with the reffing. The ref that we had, we've only had him twice.
Mhm.
I believe if I'm reading this correctly, Malik Badawi. I probably butchered that name, but yeah, fantastic ref. He was able to really call the game well, and I was impressed from obviously the last time that we had a ref, and he wasn't too good. So really impressed with that. I wish that we had more refs like that in the USL.
I really hope so too. We have a long way to go when it comes to refereeing. So thank you guys for helping us out, Ray, Cesar. Go ahead and if there's any changes to this score, please let me know on the chat so I can post it on Twitter. Ray, thank you so much for joining us as well. Thank you for helping us out with the press conference. And I do want to say this. I really want to have Bert Garcia. Like I said before, I want to have Bert Garcia on the show. Hopefully we can have him next week. And I really want this to be a really informative show for the fans. Try to at least put pressure so that there can be a lot more transparency between the team and the fans, because I think it's the minimum that we can deserve. And maybe the Dynamo may not have it, but we sure as hell want RGVSC to be the light in this organization and have this transparency. So if
I agree.
So if it happens, prepare your questions, because I think Bert Garcia is going to have an interesting time if he does come on. And we'll make sure that, and if he doesn't, and if he, for some reason, bails out in the last minute, then he's the only one that's going to look bad, because he's not putting his face in front of the fans who have questions, who have concerns about how this team is run. In the end, what are you hiding? So thank you guys. Prepare your questions, and I'll let you know if I am able to get him on next week or maybe the following week. But I'll let y'all know, and I'll let you guys, the fans, know as well. So thank you guys. Have a good evening, and Jacob and I are gonna go ahead and sign off in a little bit. So enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
All right, thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Anytime. Later, Ray.
All right.
Bye. So, Jacob, interesting. It was an interesting show today. Final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts. Yeah, what an incredible show. Not going to lie. This has been the best one that I've been a part of for sure. And, I mean, so much that we were able to discuss and just talk about, and it really impressive. Obviously, there's still so much more that we could still get into because right now it's a mess. And there's only a couple ways that you can fix it, not just to mention, obviously, Houston Dynamo and RGVFC affiliated things, but just also to mention how RGVFC has been playing for this past month. And I mean, there's still so much more that we can say. What can they change? What can happen? Just everything like that. Plus, the next game is coming up close to the Open Cup, and it's scary. What's going to happen then? And hopefully, in my opinion, hopefully, all of those guys that are on, the Houston Dynamo injury list can come back for that game, just for that Open Cup game. You have Felipe Senderos hurt with something. Even Kevin Garcia has been hurt a couple of times.
I believe he's got a hamstring. Let me go ahead and pull up the injury report for the Dynamo.
Yeah. Who else? It was, for sure, Dylan Remick, because Dylan Remick's a really good key to have when you have DeMarcus Beasley that can play a really good game and then sometimes have a slower game. That's when you put in Dylan Remick to give DeMarcus Beasley that veteran a rest, and just those players.
Yeah, because now we have Adam Lundqvist and what's his name, and Jared Watts, but just not really. I don't think they're ready yet. So the Dynamo right now, with their injury report, we have AJ De La Garza with a torn left ACL. He's still in recovery. Juan David Cabezas with a left quad injury. Felipe Senderos, right hamstring injury. George Malky with a left knee sprain. Dylan Remick with a concussion. Kevin Garcia with a left hamstring injury. Jared Watts with a right hamstring injury, and Darwin Sarin with a leg injury. Out of those 8 players that are out for injury, 6 of them are defenders. 2 of them midfielders with defensive tendencies. That pretty much says everything. How tight or how stretched out this roster is due to these injuries, and why they ended up having to bring in Adam Lundqvist and having to sacrifice Charlie Ward in order to bring him in.
Exactly. But you will most likely get at least 3 of those players back for the Open Cup. I see Dylan Remick getting cleared for concussion protocol anytime soon. And then Kevin Garcia, same deal. I think his hamstring strain should be over, and even the left knee sprain for George Malky should be over. You send those guys over, and of course you sacrifice having Eric Bird. You put him in the lineup for that game, Open Cup. Then you're left with a couple of players that could come to the RGV, but most likely won't. Maybe you keep Jared Watts and just basically maybe Jared Watts, someone like that, in the RGV. Bring them up to Salt Lake City there, and have some balance there. If the injuries can, be okay, then you have a bit of a mixed lineup from the bench of the RGV, or not the RGV, excuse me, of Houston to be put in for that one Open Cup game, and I can see that happening.
Now, before we go, I went ahead and let's go ahead. I kind of mentioned that I wanted to do this during the day, but let's go ahead and take a look at the Dynamo roster, and then we can take a look at the RGV roster. Now, we know más o menos who's the starting 11 for the Dynamo, and now we know the players who are out with an injury right now. So, when you take out those players, you're left with Eric Bird, Kevin Garcia, but he's injured, Luis Gil, Adam Lundqvist, Michael Nelson, Memo Rodriguez, Chris Seitz, Max Steves, and that's it. So it seems to me that the Dynamo, if they don't want to play their first or most of their starting 11 against NTX Rayados, they're going to have to get a lot of RGV players to try to fill that roster for Open Cup action. And that, like I said, it's not including players that can potentially come back and come out of that injury report. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, 5, 6 players. And a lot of them are pretty much in the same position. So you're talking, they're probably going to get Aldo. They're probably going to get Todd Warden. They're probably going to get Jorginho James. They're probably going to get Chuy Enriquez. They're probably going to end up getting Connor Donovan and Kyle Adams as well. So you're seeing most of our starting 11 going to be sent to go play against NTX Rayados, which means that we're probably going to see the team that played today against the against FC Brownsville. You're probably going to see that team playing against Real Monarchs.
Yep. I see that too now, especially just looking at this lineup. It almost reminds me of Risk, and this is a great analogy. Remember, you get all these army men kind of in Risk, and you go into one battle, and then you're able to spread them out after a while. Well, fortify, I think.
Yeah.
And then you end up spreading yourself way too thin with just one guy trying to block a border.
Yes.
That's basically what we have done. That's basically what we've created, and it's stressful. Luckily, if I'm not mistaken, the transfer window is still open. Of course, I doubt that Houston wants to sign anyone else, because I think they might be over their limit. But both teams need players, because depth is really important.
Definitely. And even then, I see RGV having a little bit more depth as far as roster man-wise than the Dynamo. But talent-wise, I'm not so sure. So, and I think that's the difference, or that's the problem that we have in this organization. So I'm going to go ahead and end the show on this note. I want to thank you all for being with us throughout this whole show. I want to thank our friends at the Beautiful Game Network for having the trust in having us part of their USL podcast network, for having syndicating our podcast through Stitcher, Google Play Store, and iTunes. Want to thank as well our Sean and Embrace Fusion for hosting down in the RGV.com, as well as Sean for making an appearance and, like I said, playing devil's advocate as a 100% Dynamo fan. And that's what I liked about the show. We got both sides of the coin. We understood our different point of views, and I think that's what we needed. I think we needed. We got a little too carried away with our feelings today, including myself. Where we and it's no excuse for me since I follow both teams, and like Sean mentioned many times, I knew all this stuff, why this is being run like that, and yet I decided to ignore it and let my feelings take over my tweets during the day. I think that sounds like a specific someone, but I'm not gonna talk about it. It's just sad. But hope this gets better in the future. I don't know if we're gonna have to have some sort of patience, or just hope that we get some sort of ability to stay afloat with some independence. But it's a good topic. We actually went over our 2 hours straight, no breaks, no water breaks, no 5-10 minute break. It was all continuous. 2 hours and 15 minutes of just talking about this, and I really appreciate everybody. So thank you all. I hope you all have a great night. Tomorrow, or right now, I will be making sure that this podcast goes up on SoundCloud. So be sure to, if you missed parts of it, be sure to catch it on there, and then catch it, if you can, on Google Play Store and iTunes when they do come out. On Stitcher, be sure to subscribe and help us out in that regard. Thank you, Jacob, for once again coming on the show and bringing your expertise onto the table. And we'll see each other next week.
All right. See you later.
All
Adios.
right. Take care, man.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
So, thank you all, and have a good night. We'll see each other next Wednesday. This time it should be next Wednesday, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. next Wednesday for episode 22. Hopefully we will have Bert Garcia or maybe a player on. But don't miss it. And like I said, be sure to continue calling. Phone lines will always be open on the show, so you can get us your opinions, because we might have different opinions, and it's good to know the different viewpoints. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man. What a show. Yep. Yeah. These types of shows is what we need. It's what the people love. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. All right. All right. You too. Later.